Maya was a nice lady who lived in a small town. She was very kind and smart, but people didn't always treat her well because her skin was a beautiful dark color. Even though Maya always tried to be friendly, some people didn't like her just because of how she looked. Maya worked hard every day as a seamstress, which means she made clothes for people. She was very good at sewing and would spend long hours making beautiful dresses and shirts for others. She didn't make a lot of money, but she saved whatever she could. Every stitch she made in her work was like a part of her strong heart because she never gave up, even when people were mean to her. One cool, sunny morning, Maya was very excited. She had saved enough money to go to the bank and deposit it, which means putting it into her bank account. She had worked so hard for this money, and she knew it was very important to keep her business going. Maya grabbed her old leather purse, which had her savings in it, and started walking to the bank. As she walked through the town, she remembered all the times people had been rude to her. Sometimes they whispered mean things or gave her strange looks, but Maya kept walking with her head held high. She was strong inside, even if people didn't always see it. When Maya reached the bank, it was busy, with lots of people inside doing their own business. She took a deep breath and pushed open the glass doors. Her heart was happy because she had finally saved enough money to deposit, but as soon as she walked in, she could feel something was different. People were staring at her, and the air felt strange. But Maya didn't let it bother her. She just walked up to the counter where the bank teller sat. The teller was a young lady with a serious face. She didn't smile at Maya, even though Maya smiled at her. "I'd like to put my money into my bank account, please," Maya said, sliding her little book across the counter. The teller didn't seem happy. She looked at Maya's bank book with a frown, flipping through it quickly. Then she looked at Maya's hands for a moment and handed the book back without even looking at her properly. "You'll have to wait," the teller said, sounding a little rude. Maya was confused. "Wait, but I've already waited in line and it's my turn now." The teller leaned forward a little, lowering her voice like she was telling a secret. But what she said was mean. "We have special rules for people like you," she said. Maya's heart sank. What did she mean by people like you? Maya had heard people say things like this before. It was a way of being mean because of her skin color. She had done nothing wrong, yet here she was being treated badly again. Maya tried to stay calm. Her voice was steady, but she felt sad inside. "I've been coming to this bank for years. What's the problem today?" she asked. The teller sighed loudly, acting like she didn't want to deal with Maya anymore. She waved over a big security guard. The guard came over, standing tall and staring at Maya like she had done something bad, even though she hadn't. "We need you to leave," the guard said in a flat voice. Maya felt a tight knot in her stomach. "Why?" she asked, feeling a bit scared. "I haven't done anything wrong." The guard didn't care. "You're making the other customers uncomfortable," he said coldly. Maya looked around the bank. A few people were watching her now. Some looked uncomfortable, while others had mean faces. She could feel the heat rising in her cheeks, not from anger, but from feeling hurt and embarrassed. Why was this happening to her? "Please," Maya said, her voice starting to shake. "I just want to put my money in my account. I've been a good customer here for a long time." The teller leaned forward again, this time with a sneer on her face. "We can refuse to help anyone we want," she said. "Now, if you don't leave, we'll have to call for more help." The security guard took a step closer to Maya. His hand rested on his belt where he had a big stick, like he was ready to use it. Maya knew she couldn't win this fight. She had seen things like this happen before. If she argued, things might get worse, and she didn't want to make a bigger scene. Her hands shook as she grabbed her purse and quietly turned toward the door. She didn't want to cry in front of all these people, but she could feel the tears building up behind her eyes. Her legs felt heavy as she walked toward the exit. It was like walking through thick mud. When she finally stepped outside, the cool breeze hit her face. It felt like the wind was trying to wipe away her sadness, but the hurt was too deep. She stopped for a moment and looked back at the bank. The whispers of people talking about her inside still rang in her ears. Maya had been kicked out of the bank, not because she did anything wrong, but just because she looked different. She felt so sad and frustrated, but then something changed inside her. This wasn't the first time the world had been mean to her. She had dealt with this kind of pain before, but today, something was different. There was a small fire inside Maya, a spark of strength that wouldn't go out. Maya wiped her tears and took a deep breath. "I won't let this break me," she whispered to herself. "I'll do something amazing next." Maya began her slow walk home, still feeling the sting of what had happened, but her mind was busy thinking about what she could do next. As she walked past the same streets she had seen every day, she thought about all the times people had made her feel small. But Maya wasn't small. She was strong, even if people didn't see it yet. And now she knew she had to show them. When Maya got home, she walked into her small house and dropped her purse onto the table. She felt so tired, not just in her body, but in her heart. She collapsed onto the old, comfy couch in the living room and stared up at the ceiling. The ceiling fan spun lazily above her, but Maya barely noticed. She was too deep in thought. Tears started rolling down her cheeks again. She wasn't just crying because of what happened at the bank. She was crying because of all the times people had treated her badly in her life. As a little girl, she remembered hearing mean things about her skin color. As she grew older, people wouldn't hire her for jobs, and even though she was smart and worked hard. And now at the bank, she was treated like she didn't belong, all because of how she looked. It wasn't fair. Maya knew that. But what could she do? She had tried to be kind, to work hard, and to follow all the rules, but the world still treated her badly. Maya lay there for a while, letting all the sadness and frustration pour out. But then something happened. As she cried, she started thinking about all the people who might be going through the same thing. People who were also treated unfairly, just because they were different. Maya sat up slowly, wiping her tears away. She thought about the people in her town, especially the younger kids who might grow up facing the same challenges she had. She didn't want them to feel the same pain she was feeling now. Suddenly, Maya had an idea. What if she could do something to help others who were treated unfairly? What if she could start a project or a group that would teach people how to save money and be strong, even when the world was unkind? Maya wasn't sure exactly how she would do it yet, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to let this stop her. She was going to turn her pain into something powerful, something that would help her and help others too. And with that thought, Maya felt a little bit of hope return. She smiled softly to herself. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she was ready for the challenge. Maya sat quietly, thinking about what had just happened. She had gone to the bank to take care of some things, but instead of being treated kindly, she was treated very badly. The people there acted as if she didn't matter, and it wasn't the first time she had felt this way. This day brought back memories of all the times people had hurt her just because of the color of her skin. She remembered the job interviews where she worked so hard but never got a chance. She remembered friends who left her because they didn't understand what she was going through. And she remembered the looks people gave her when she walked into certain places as if she didn't belong. All these feelings flooded back, making her feel very sad. As Maya sat on the couch, she felt the weight of all these bad experiences. She thought about how unfair the world was and how being treated this way made her feel very small. For a long time, she had tried to be strong, but today it was just too much. She couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears started to fall from her eyes. She cried quietly, letting go of all the anger and sadness that had built up inside her for years. It was like a dam had broken, and all her emotions were finally spilling out. She felt exhausted, but in a way it was also a relief to let it all out. Maya thought about how hard she had worked. She used to stitch clothes in a small room for hours and saved every little bit of money she could. She had always been determined to build a better future for herself. But in just a few minutes at the bank, all her dignity had been taken away. The bank teller and the security guard made her feel like she didn't matter at all. For a moment, Maya thought about giving up. She felt defeated, like there was no point in trying anymore. She considered leaving the town, maybe moving somewhere far away and starting all over. She even thought about abandoning her dream of building a better life. Everything seemed too hard, and she felt like she couldn't fight against the unfairness anymore. But then, as she cried, something inside her changed. She remembered her younger siblings, who looked up to her. They saw her as their hero, and she didn't want to let them down. She also thought about the kids in her neighborhood who would one day face the same kind of unfair treatment, and she remembered her mother's words. "No one can take your worth from you, Maya. You are stronger than this world's cruelty." Maya wiped her tears and sat up straighter. She knew she was strong, even if the world tried to make her feel weak. She realized that she couldn't let this one incident define her. She couldn't give in to the story that others tried to force on her. Maya's sadness started to turn into something else, something stronger. She wasn't going to be just another person hurt by discrimination. She decided to take this pain and turn it into something good, something that would help not just her, but others who had been treated the same way. As she sat in her quiet living room, Maya made a decision. She wasn't going to fight back with anger. She was going to use her mind, her heart, and her kindness to rise above the cruelty she had faced. What she planned to do next would surprise the people at the bank and maybe even the whole town. Maya knew it wouldn't be easy, and she couldn't do it alone. But for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful again. A small smile appeared on her face as she thought about what she could do. That evening, Maya sat at her small dining table with a cup of tea next to her. She opened a notebook and started writing down her ideas. Earlier that day, she had promised herself that she wouldn't let the bad things that happened at the bank be the end of her story. Instead, they would be the beginning of something bigger, something important. The pain of what had happened at the bank made her want to do more. She remembered the people in the bank, the way they looked at her with cold, uncaring faces. They didn't see her value, but she did. And now she wanted to help others see their value too. Maya grabbed her old laptop and began researching. She typed things like helping the community with money, empowering people, and starting a group to make things better. She read for hours, learning as much as she could. She knew that many people in her town and in other towns too were struggling. People like her were being left out, pushed aside, and made to feel small because of their background or the color of their skin. But Maya knew she wasn't the only one facing these challenges. There were many others, people who were also denied opportunities. They didn't have access to resources, financial help, or the respect they deserved. That night, Maya had an idea. She decided to start a small group to help people like her, people who had been held back because of unfairness. Her plan was simple but powerful. She wanted to teach her community about money. She wanted to give them the tools they needed to succeed, even in a world that didn't always give them a fair chance. She called her idea the Empower Initiative. It would be a small movement at first, but Maya believed it could grow into something much bigger. She knew from her own life that learning about money, how to save it, how to use it wisely, was one of the most important steps to building a better future. If people like her could learn how to manage their money, they could break free from the cycle of poverty and discrimination. Maya reached out to a few friends, people she knew cared about fairness and justice. They gathered in her living room to talk about how they could start helping others. Soon, they began organizing small workshops at community centers, teaching people about budgeting, understanding credit, and saving for the future. Word spread quickly about these workshops. More and more people started showing up, eager to learn and take control of their financial futures. Maya's living room meetings turned into larger community events, and soon local businesses and even some banks, not the one that had treated her badly, began to take notice of what she was doing. As the movement grew, Maya knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were powerful people in her town, those with money and influence, who wouldn't be happy about a Black woman leading a movement that pointed out the unfairness in the system. But Maya wasn't afraid. She had come too far to back down now. She kept working hard, gathering more people to help with the Empower initiative. They held more workshops, and slowly, the community started to change. People were learning how to take control of their finances and their lives. They were beginning to feel empowered. Even though Maya knew there would still be challenges, she felt strong and determined. She was no longer just someone who had been hurt by the world. She was a leader, someone who was making a real difference in the lives of others. And she knew that as long as she kept moving forward, there was no limit to what she and her community could achieve. Maya's journey wasn't over, but she had found her purpose. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for everyone who had ever been treated unfairly. And she knew, deep in her heart, that together, they could create a better future. Maya wasn't just trying to teach people how to handle their money. She wanted to help them feel strong enough to stand up for themselves. She worked with lawyers to help people who were treated unfairly by businesses, banks, or landlords. Together, they gave a voice to people who didn't feel heard. Over time, Maya's project, called the Empower Initiative, grew much bigger than she ever thought it would. It started as a small group teaching people about money, but it became a movement about fairness and equal treatment. Even though there were many hard times, Maya kept going because she remembered the day she was treated badly at the bank, and she wanted to help others who had been hurt too. What began as Maya's way of dealing with her own pain turned into something that gave hope to many people. And she wasn't done yet. There was so much more she could do. As weeks turned into months, the Empower Initiative became a big community movement. Maya, who used to be a quiet woman who sewed clothes, was now well known in the town. People respected her and looked up to her because she was helping so many. She gave hope to those who felt stuck and couldn't see a way out of their problems. The small meetings she used to have in her house got bigger and bigger. Hundreds of people started coming to learn about money, business, and their rights. Maya's living room wasn't big enough for all these people, so she started working with community centers, churches, and even some kind business owners to find places to meet. But not everyone was happy about Maya's growing movement. Some of the rich people in the town and even some local leaders didn't like what she was doing. They didn't like the idea of a Black woman leading a movement that talked about unfair treatment and how the town's systems were not fair to everyone. They were scared that Maya's work would make people question the way things had always been, which had made life comfortable for them. The first big challenge Maya faced came when someone started spreading lies about her. Flyers were posted all over town saying bad things about her, like she was only doing this for herself and not for the community. The local newspaper, which usually supported the town's rich people, published an article saying that Maya's movement was causing trouble and wasn't needed, calling her a troublemaker who was stirring up problems between different races. Maya felt hurt by these attacks. But she wasn't shocked. She had expected people to fight back because change often scares those who benefit from keeping things the same. She decided to address these lies during one of her community meetings. Standing in front of a packed room of people who had been helped by her work, she spoke confidently. "Some people are afraid of what we're building here," she said. "They don't want us to have the knowledge and power to fight back against the unfairness we face every day. But we won't let them stop us. We won't be scared into silence." The crowd stood up and clapped for her. The people in the room were no longer just looking for financial advice. They were part of something much bigger, something that made them feel proud and strong. Maya's movement continued to grow, and soon people in other towns started to notice. People from all over the area reached out to Maya, asking for advice on how to start similar projects in their own towns. Maya even traveled to speak at different events, sharing her story and how successful the Empower initiative had been. What started as a small project in her town was now turning into a larger movement for fairness and justice in the whole region. But with growth came new challenges. The banks, businesses, and local officials who felt threatened by Maya's work tried to stop her every chance they got. They wouldn't let her use public spaces for her events. They pressured businesses not to support her, and they even spread more rumors to make people doubt her. Maya, however, didn't give up. She had faced unfair treatment her whole life, so this was just another problem to solve. Each time she was blocked, it only made her stronger. She knew that this wasn't just about her anymore. She was fighting for a whole community of people who had been ignored and treated unfairly for too long. One day, Maya got a call she didn't expect. And it was from a group of community leaders in a nearby city who wanted to work with her on a bigger project. They were impressed with her work and wanted to take the Empower initiative to more people, possibly even creating a network of movements across the state. Maya felt overwhelmed with excitement. This was a chance to help even more people. But before she could move forward, she knew there was one place she had to go back to, the very bank that had humiliated her at the start of her journey. With her community behind her and the Empower initiative stronger than ever, Maya decided it was time to return to the bank where it all began. She wasn't going back for revenge, but to show them that they hadn't broken her. Instead, they had started something that was changing the town, and maybe even the state for the better. The day finally came. Maya stood outside the bank, the same one where she had been embarrassed, her hands shaking with a mix of fear and determination. But this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her were dozens of people from the community, men, women, and children, many of whom had been helped by the Empower initiative. They had come to support her, not to protest, but to show they stood with her. The news media had also heard about the event. Reporters stood on the sidewalk with their cameras and microphones ready to capture the moment. Maya knew that this wasn't just about her going back to the bank. It was a big moment for everyone. People were watching. When Maya walked into the bank, the cold air inside greeted her again. But this time, she walked in confidently, with her head held high. The same bank teller who had treated her badly that day was still there. The teller's face looked surprised and uncomfortable as Maya approached. The security guard who had once escorted her out of the bank stood nearby, looking uneasy. Maya didn't come to cause trouble. She just wanted to show them that they hadn't stopped her. She was stronger now, and so was her community. This moment wasn't just about what had happened to her. It was about standing up to the unfair systems that had hurt so many. As Maya stood in the bank that day, surrounded by her community and the media, she realized just how far she had come. She wasn't the quiet seamstress anymore. She was a leader, and her movement was changing lives. And no matter how hard some people tried to stop her, Maya knew that she and her community would keep fighting for fairness and equality. Maya left the bank that day with her head held high, knowing that she hadn't just returned to where it all began. She'd come back as a symbol of strength, hope, and the power of standing up for what is right. And her journey was far from over. There were still more challenges ahead, but Maya was ready to face them, knowing that she was no longer alone in her fight for justice. Maya walked up to the counter at the bank. She spoke calmly but in a serious way. "I want to talk to the bank manager. Manager, please," she said. The woman working at the counter hesitated for a moment, looking unsure. But then she pressed a button on her phone to call the manager. After a few minutes, a man in a nice suit came out from an office in the back. He looked like he was around 50 years old. His face showed that he was curious but also a little nervous. It seemed like he already knew about Maya, about the movement she had started, and why she had come to the bank. The man forced a small smile and said, "Miss Maya, how can I help you today?" He pointed to his office and asked, "Would you like to talk in private?" Maya shook her head. "No, I think we should talk here in front of everyone." The manager's smile faded a little, but he nodded. The bank workers and customers around them started to watch. Everyone could tell something important was happening. Maya took a deep breath and began to speak. Her voice was strong and filled with purpose. "Months ago, this bank treated me unfairly and kicked me out just because of the color of my skin. That made me feel angry and hurt, but instead of letting it defeat me, I decided to take action. I started a movement to help people in my community learn about money and how the financial system works, a system that has been unfair to us for a long time." She pointed to the people standing behind her. "These are the people you tried to ignore. We are the ones who have been left out for too long. But we're not here today to ask for an apology or talk about the past. We're here to make sure no one else goes through what I did." The room grew quiet as everyone listened. The manager's face turned red, but he stayed calm. "Miss Maya, we are very sorry if there was a misunderstanding in the past. We value all our customers and are committed to treating everyone fairly." Maya didn't blink. "Words are easy. What matters is what you do. That's why I'm here today. Not just for me, but for everyone in this town who deserves fair and equal treatment from this bank." The manager shifted in his seat, looking uncomfortable. "What do you want us to do?" he asked. Maya stood tall, feeling the support of her community behind her. "I want a partnership. The movement I started, called the Empower Initiative, has grown beyond what I ever imagined. We are helping hundreds of people learn how to manage their money and become financially independent. But we need banks like yours to work with us. We need you to provide real opportunities for people of color and others who have been left out." The people behind her murmured in agreement. It was clear Maya was not speaking just for herself anymore. She was speaking for many others. The manager hesitated, knowing everyone was watching him. Finally, he sighed and nodded. "We are open to discussing a partnership. I will set up a meeting with our corporate office to see how we can work together with your initiative." Maya nodded. "That's a start. But remember, we won't stop until everyone in this community is treated with respect and given the same opportunities." With that, Maya turned and walked out of the bank, the crowd following her. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment as the community cheered. This wasn't just a victory for Maya, it was a victory for everyone who had been made to feel less important. As Maya stepped outside into the sunlight, she felt lighter. This wasn't the end of her journey, but it was an important step. She had faced the bank that treated her unfairly, and she did it with strength and dignity. For the first time in a long time, Maya smiled. The bank may have pushed her out months ago, but today she walked back in on her own terms, and she had won. In the weeks that followed, the partnership between the Empower Initiative and the bank became a reality. The bank, under pressure from the community and the media, had no choice but to cooperate. But as they worked together, something surprising happened. What started as a response to public pressure turned into something much bigger. With Maya's leadership, the bank began to implement new policies. They started offering more opportunities to people who had been left out before. They held workshops to teach financial literacy, how to buy a home, and how to start small businesses. Maya, who had once been treated unfairly at the same bank, was now a respected partner. She worked closely with the bank's leaders to make sure their services were fair and inclusive. As the initiative grew, Maya's story began to spread. News outlets picked up on her journey, how she turned a bad experience into a movement that empowered hundreds of people. She was invited to speak at conferences, share her experiences on podcasts, and meet with important figures in the financial world who wanted to learn from her success. But Maya stayed focused on her community. For her, the real victory was seeing how the Empower initiative was changing lives. Families who had struggled to make ends meet were now saving money, starting businesses, and even buying homes. People who had been denied opportunities were gaining financial independence and confidence. The initiative had created a ripple effect, lifting up individuals and their families. One day, Maya went back to the bank, not for a meeting or an event, but just as a regular customer. She walked through the doors with the same quiet strength she had always had, but now she carried the knowledge that she had made lasting change. She approached the same bank teller who had treated her badly months ago. The woman recognized Maya and her face turned red. But this time, there was no anger or meanness in her eyes, just respect. "How can I help you today, Miss Maya?" the teller asked softly. Maya smiled warmly. "I'd like to make a deposit." The teller processed the transaction carefully and then handed Maya her receipt. "Thank you for everything you've done," the teller said. Maya nodded. She wasn't here to hold grudges. She was here to keep moving forward, to show that the best revenge is success and the greatest strength is helping others, even when you've been wronged. As Maya walked out of the bank, she paused to reflect on her journey. What had begun as a painful experience had turned into something powerful. She had faced discrimination head-on, not with anger, but with determination to change things. And in doing so, she had not only changed her own life, but also sparked a movement that would continue to grow long after she was gone. The lesson from Maya's story was simple. When the world tries to make you feel small, when people tell you that you don't belong or that your voice doesn't matter, the most powerful thing you can do is prove them wrong. Not by fighting back with anger, but by standing strong and showing that you have the ability to create change. Maya's journey wasn't over, but she knew she had already accomplished something amazing. And the best part? This was only the beginning. Share your thoughts about this story in the comments below. I would love to hear your perspective. And if you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to my channel, Fiction of Peace. I am spending hours upon hours writing these heartwarming and inspiring stories for you, and your support is what keeps me going.